Welcome back to the Electric Vibe podcast. I'm your man, Harlan Hucky Austin, and I'm here with my two brothers, Kirk Hoffman and J. David Silva. We have a very, very special show for you tonight, one that is incredibly meaningful to me. My mentor, the one who really got me started in the field of executive protection, we are honored to have one of his daughters on this evening. But before we get into that, we are going to welcome Kurt and Jay. Hey guys, tell everybody what's up.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes.
What's
Hucky, how are
going on?
you? Good to see you. Kurt, good to see you too. I'm really excited for
Likewise.
today's episode. Really excited.
Mondays are normally not my favorite day of the week, and I got to say, since we've been doing this together, us three, this is my favorite day of the week now. So,
Nice.
So once again, we are going to be spending time with a very, very special individual. Her name is Melissa Kahn Huntsberry, or let's reverse that, Melissa Huntsberry Kahn.
well,
And
it's
she's
Melissa
going to
Kahn.
Thank you. And she's going to tell us a little bit about, her father. We're going to revisit some memories. I have very fond memories of not only Chick, but also of the whole family as well, too. Before we get started, I just want to tell a little bit about my story and how I met Chick. My best friend, Mark Brown, was the bass player, as many know, for Prince and the Revolution. So I used to go out to the rehearsals and I'd hang out. And I remember one of the very first times that I went to rehearsal, there's this mammoth of a man in the rehearsal hall. So me and him start talking, and he tells me, he says, "Have you ever thought about doing security?" And I said, "No." I said, I was in college, and I said, like, I'm gonna stay in college, and my goal is to play pro football." So he looks at me with a straight face and says, "Oh, you're too slow to play football." And I'm like, "How do you know that? You've never seen me play. You don't know that I'm slow or whatever." He's like, "I just know. Trust me, buddy." And Melissa's going to tell us more about that. The quick wittiness of him,
Mhm.
the stories that he had, it's burned into my mind forever. And I am so excited to be able to spend some time with Melissa. Melissa, welcome to the Electric Vibe podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're really happy that you're here. Hey, I got to ask, how's the rest of the family? How's your mom doing?
Really well. She told me a couple stories to tell. I,
Okay.
I had to be, I was laughing because of her stories. I'm like, Mom, when was that? And she's like, sometime in the 70s. And I'm like, Mom, Dad wasn't with Prince in the 70s. Well, I don't know, she says, but I said, Mom, is this a true story? And she's like, yes, it's true. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so funny. I was just laughing the whole time and I'm writing stuff down and Tina's in the background, she's like, "Oh my gosh, she's terrible. Oh, she has another story she wants to tell you." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm ready." But it was fun.
That is hilarious. It reminds me of when my mom was alive too, and she would share stories. I'm like, are you sure this is accurate? So, Melissa, I totally get it.
Mhm.
So, we're going to start out with wanting you to give a little education to our audience about your father. So, help us to kind of understand, and over the years, I've talked a lot about him, but I am so happy that we actually have one of his family members here this evening to tell us a little bit about him. And one of the things, the very first thing that I want to ask you is when somebody says your father's name, Big Chick, tell me what comes to your heart and your mind.
I would say to me and definitely my siblings, because we've talked about this, he was our Superman. He's like, I think I never thought anything would ever happen to Dad. So when he passed away, I was really, you know, it was a lot. Of course, when someone loses their dad, it's a lot, but since I remember, he always lifted weights and, he was big and nobody ever messed with any of us kids because, they knew who our dad was. But when someone says his name, I'm proud. He was legendary. And I think it's funny because people know who my dad is. Like even on Facebook, some comments could be, who's he? And put some clothes on because he'd have tank tops and, suspenders. But and you just have to ignore that because there's a lot of there is a lot of negativity online, and you just have to take it with a grain of salt, because I know who Dad is and who he was to me. And that's why it gets sad when people say things, because he's more than just a bodyguard. He was a dad, a grandpa, and a husband, and an uncle, and
Yeah.
he's a person.
Mhm.
Yeah, Melissa, one of the things I just kind of wanted to, to chime in a little bit there. Chick left, I don't know, I feel like midway during the Purple Rain tour, and for years, it took me a long time to understand that. I felt like, and I think Gilbert felt the same way, that my mentor, my second father, he left us. But Melissa, it was years later that when it was my turn to leave, and I could handle all I could handle with working,
Mhm.
and that's a whole nother episode.
Sure is.
I got it. I got it. And
Mhm.
one of the things that you said that just really struck home to me is that people forget that Chick was not this own celebrity in his own right, but he was a father. He
Mhm.
did have a family. And and I always tell people, it's like you have no idea, because when they think about being with Prince, they only think about, oh my God, that must have been so awesome. And to a degree, yeah, it was. But when you're away from your family constantly, when you're on the road constantly, that takes its toll on an individual. What do you remember about your dad being gone a lot on the road? And tell me, how did you guys feel?
Well, when Mom would fly out to California when Prince rented that mansion out there, I was only a junior in high school. I freaking thought it was great, because I would be on the phone arranging a party right away. So
Ah,
I was like I am probably the most like my dad. All my siblings are equally great, but I am the most boisterous, and I was in plays and I sang, and I still get up and sing karaoke. I could be sober. So I am a lot like my dad in the way of being boisterous and social and have to be the center of everything. So yeah, I would have a party, but it was also hard because he was away. I think Prince moved us here in 83. I was a junior in high school. I went to 4 different high schools.
mm,
Um, in high school. I went to Ohio, grade school through ninth grade. I was in Ohio schools. I have a lot of friends still from that. Tennessee, 2 different high schools, and then
mm.
Chaska High School, junior and senior year. Prince bought us a house in Chanhassen. So he wanted Dad closer. So when we first moved here, it was great. Prince invited us to do a dance class with him and the Revolution. They were getting ready for the Purple Rain filming for,
Mhm.
energy and endurance and stuff like that. And that was, oh my gosh, nobody could stop laughing at Prince and the time, and they were just so funny. I mean, you couldn't even keep a straight face because they were cutting up, and but that was so much fun. That was such a great memory. And Prince would say, "Hey, watch this," and he'd do a little ballet, little twirl and whatever. He was a comedian in his own right. I mean, he was, but
Mhm.
um and the pranks they would do on each other was funny too. But that whole summer it was great because we'd go to the warehouse, like Hucky was saying, and watch them record and practice, for the tour. And it didn't feel like he was gone then, because he always wanted us to go. We didn't know anybody in Minnesota when we moved here, so
Mm.
that was our entertainment the summer before I started high school.
So Melissa, so once again, people see this legendary figure, and for those of us that have been around the block a couple times, we remember your dad very well, especially in the early days with Prince. I mean, you could not see Prince and not see Chick somewhere really close around. But what I'd like to ask you is, what was he like at home when he wasn't working, when he was just with you guys, with
Mhm.
your mom and the family, and when he wasn't traveling? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, he loved the outdoors. He loved his Harley. He was always lifting weights. Since I can remember, my dad lifted weights, even way back in Ohio when I was little. Um, he really kept us doing things. Like in the summer, we played kickball, and we had a big front yard, and we would play volleyball and badminton and and all this stuff. But he was very competitive, and I don't know if you've ever had a ball spiked at you by a 6'7" mammoth of a man, but I have. It wasn't really fun. I'm like, are you sure you want to play volleyball? So yeah, believe me, dad made us tough. Like there's not much any of us can't do in life because of him. He gave us, you know, a lot of he gave us a lot of skills before we went out in the world. That's for sure. Arm wrestling and playing darts and lifting weights. And I was more of a leg person. I ran track and soccer, and I didn't want upper strength, you know, but yeah, my dad was great. Like we grew up going to church every Sunday. He'd have Jimmy Swagger on the 8-track, and mom would be frying up bacon, and we'd all, you know, 5 girls and a boy. Mom would do all of our hair, and everybody in church couldn't believe, you know, 5 girls and a boy, but we always had our hair curled and ribbons in our hair. And they thought mom was fabulous for being able to do all of that. But we grew up and with faith and religion and, you know, a great mom and dad and a lot of love and always doing something. So that's really the way it was. And but it was never a dull moment, like having 6 kids, and then all of us had friends, and our house was always busy. So I wouldn't have changed that for anything.
At one point, your father was a minister, post Prince.
Yes.
So what was that like in the household to have your dad become a minister of faith?
Well, like I said, we grew up that way. He was an elder in the church, you know, like
Oh, elder. Okay.
just no, afterwards, after Prince, he
Oh,
did do his little ministry, and he went into prisons and talked to guys on that were actually in trouble, and brought them to faith, and that gave them hope. Dad always wanted to open a ranch for kids that didn't have a home, but it never happened because he passed away. But he just loved kids, and he wanted them to have hope. And you know, he went on his testimony, it is out there online and stuff, saying how he worked for a prince, but now he works for the true prince, his Lord Jesus. And so I know one of the questions were, how did that make us feel? We were raised that way. I think dad will tell you on his testimony, he kind of backslid because of the excitement of the rock industry and being known and fame, and you know, the money was good in the 80s. I don't know how it is now, but it was good back then. And having 6 kids, he wanted to do something that he was great at, and it wasn't like work for him, because if he had to punch somebody out, that was kind of fun. Not that he was ever like that. Like my dad was pretty calm, but if he had to say something 3-4 times, he had to make it known that he wasn't messing around. And then once the crowd saw him in action, they were not messing with him. So
I've read his book. He tells some good stories about that too.
Yeah.
So, yes.
And then bringing up his book, I feel I just wanted to be known that he, you know, the cocaine and all that stuff. I didn't grow up around that. That was the 80s. I think everybody was doing cocaine, probably even Lionel Richie, but I have no proof of that. Allegedly.
Right.
I'm just saying everybody was doing it in the 80s.
Matt Fink was very forthcoming about him doing a little bit of that, and Prince told him to stop doing it. Actually, he was very forthcoming in an interview fairly recently. So, you know, like you said, it was the 80s. You know?
Well, and Prince had so much energy. Once everybody went to bed, even Prince, you know, he had no problem starting a concert at midnight, you know, or he decided to play or whatever. And, you know, my dad, somebody roadies, I don't know, somebody introduced it to him and said, hey, this is the only way you're going to keep up with him. And he tried it and he did it. And I'm not blaming that person or whoever it was, but I'm just saying he was introduced to it and it worked. And that's part of the reason why he left, because he had to get his crap together. Or my mom pretty much told him, you know, it's the tour or your family. And I think that was a no-brainer, but that's a whole other podcast. But
sure.
Kurt, I know you got a couple more questions, and I
Sure.
want to chime in before you ask your next question. But you know, Melissa, I can't emphasize this enough. You know what the business does to any individual that has a family or is in a relationship. And I've seen people get burnt out, and it's a lot, especially when you're working with a mega superstar like
Hmm.
Prince. And then one of the things that I want to have people, especially our younger audience members, is this is before cell phones. This is
Hmm.
before social media. So Chick, Gilbert, and myself, I mean, we stayed in our hotel rooms and we just waited, and we waited for Prince to do something. And and you're thinking about, wow, what is my family doing? And
Hmm.
Chick talked about you guys. He talked about the family all the time. And
Mm.
so, having an opportunity to hear things from your perspective, it really resonates with me. Kirk, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spill your thunder there, or steal
No,
your,
you
but I just had to get in there.
no, it
Well, one
actually.
thing,
Oh,
yeah, oh,
sorry.
sorry. I was just gonna say the waiting part is so funny because do you remember in high school you wanted to talk on the phone with your boyfriend or your friends, and
Sure.
that call waiting came, and I was like, oh, who invented this? And I'd click over and I'd hear this deep voice, chick there. This is what he'd say, chick there. And I'd be like, oh, hi, Prince. Let me get him, Dad. And I'd scream. And then I'd go, Dad, can you hurry up? So and so's on the other line. He's like, hang up the phone.
I
So then I'd
remember.
hang up the phone, but it was
Oh, that's
dinged. So
great.
I could get back on the phone. But I just loved it because Prince would go, chick there. And I was like, the deepest voice. I can't even do it. But
Take care.
that's the way, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he talked to him a matter of, probably said, be at my house, blah, blah, blah. It was quick, so I could get back on the phone. But then I'd say, huh, that was Prince. And then whoever was on the phone at the time would die. That was Prince. And then, I
Oh, that's
just,
great.
I would forget about that he was some, like famous because my dad started Dirty Mind Tour. Like
Yeah.
people didn't know who
Hmm.
Prince was. In fact, I Want to Be Your Lover, I thought that was Michael Jackson. I'm serious. Like, I didn't know who that was because I lived in Ohio. Nobody knew Prince. I'm sure more in Minneapolis they did because that's where he lived. And
Mm.
but I have to tell you one story. This is funny. We're sitting there watching TV with my dad and I, and I don't know who else was in the room. I just remember me and my dad, and there's an advertisement for Prince coming, and he's dancing around on stage, black bikini, undies or whatever it is, and this
Yep.
nice suit coats, and this beautiful keyboard music, and just music that I had never heard before. And I'm like, Dad, there's this guy on stage dancing around in his undies. He's coming to Columbus. And Dad's like, well, that's really weird, or whatever. And then here to find out he was working, and I'm talking 2 months later, he's literally working for this
Wow.
guy. So,
Wow.
I mean, that was really weird. I always remember that because I
Mm.
was ninth grade, eighth grade. I mean, you didn't see stuff like that
Mhm.
in that time. And
Did not. And you still,
mm-mm. And
So
Dad
here.
even said, well, that's weird, and Dad, you talked about genres of music. My dad listened to country all the time. He loved Johnny Cash, Waylon
Mhm.
Jennings. He also loved Southern rock, Leonard Skinner. He would be downstairs in the basement lifting weights and crank Leonard Skinner. And so it was funny because he just liked all genres of music. And he always said Purple Rain should be a country song. I just had to tell you that part.
That that tracks. It tracks. I mean, this is what we live for, my dear. We live for these side stories because we're not going to hear it anywhere else, but
Yeah.
from folks like yourself, who, this is your father we're talking about.
Mhm.
So let's go back to the family unit for just a second. So, the house was kind of full there. You had Tina, Kim, Rebecca, Brigitte, Chuck, and yourself. So what was it like growing up in that household with everybody? I mean, you talked about the curlers getting done, your mom doing all that, frying the bacon, listening to Jimmy Swaggart, what have you. What kind of dad? I mean, we're getting a picture of what your dad was like, but what was it like in the household with all this going on and just trying to get on with your day?
It was busy, very busy. My aunt, my mom's sister, tells the funny story to me every time that I was the second oldest, but Tina is 4 years older than me.
Right.
So every time mom brought a kid home from the hospital, my aunt said I would jump on my mom's lap, like, hey, don't forget me. And I think that's funny because I would never trade any of my siblings. Like, I loved it, but also it was a thing where, you know, you wanted that attention from your mom, and she always gave it to us. It wasn't ever robbed. I think as we got older, when Becky got a little sick and had her ailments and stuff, she had to give Becky more attention, but we all understood that because we were all thriving and we all had our husbands or boyfriends at the time and a lot of friends around us. But we grew up in a lot of love, and that's how we're all still close today. And we still go and celebrate Dad's birthday and the anniversary of his death. We, you know, go to his favorite pizza place, and we just keep his memories alive. I have a group on Facebook. So does Tina.
Yes. What's
so
the
just
pizza place?
keeping
I'm
us-
curious what the pizza place is.
It's Ditello's in Eden Prairie.
Okay, Jay and I are going to be in celebration this year. Well, coming up here in June. So, you know, we want to have a slice of pizza in your dad's honor.
Yeah, we're trying
Yes, do it.
we're
We got
trying
a
to
rental car.
landmark, right?
We got cash. We got the rental car. We
We
got
can
the
get
cash. We
around.
got the ride. We know how to do that. No,
Well,
seriously,
he
though.
loved it there at the time because nobody was there. And that was
Crowds.
another thing I was gonna say. Like, was he humble? Did he like attention? He did like attention, but when he was eating, that was business, you know, like he was a good eater. And so we would all be starving and he'd go around looking for a restaurant, and then he was like, that's too busy. Or, you know, I'd go, Dad, I'm hungry, you know. And I like, Dad, if there's nobody there, then it's probably not good. And he goes, well, that's not true. This is a new pizza place. People don't know about it. So I'm going to go in there and eat. And it was really good pizza. It's still really good pizza. So, but at the time, people didn't know about it, but now they sure do. And it's busy. But yeah.
They should have a slice called the Big Chick. They could have it over,
Right.
you know, big one of these big slices. We need to talk to them. Somebody needs to
Right.
talk to them. We'll get on that for you. We'll get on that.
That's right. That's right.
They
So,
should have one in his honor.
There you go. Right.
But yeah, it was always busy. And then also he included us. Like, someone was like, how come Chick gets so many people on the guest list? It would be, you know, so funny. You know, I think I gave you a picture of, no, it was a backstage pass, but he'd include us in the warehouse and going there. And also my sister Tina worked for Prince, was a secretary, and would run over and do things. So once Dad sent us over for something, I don't know what it was, but we ran over, or we were giving something to him, maybe a cake pan. I don't remember, but he loved my mom's chocolate chip cakes. And we ran over there to the house on 101, the Purple House, and Tina knocked on the door, and Prince answered the door, and he had a white mask on his face, a mask, you know, for a facial mask. And when he came to the door, I was like, trick or treat, because he had the white mask on his face. He slams the door in our face, and you could hear him down the steps. And Tina looked at me and she's like, you're in trouble. And I was like, what? And I'm cracking up because I was always the jokey person. And so Prince comes back up, and he opens the door, and he's like, hey, you know, his face is all cleaned up, and I'm still laughing, and he kind of giggles. But I just thought that was funny because
That's great.
that's the way I was.
That's great.
it really is. Wow. You know what, Melissa, we're getting a good picture and a good sense of who your dad was. One of the questions I wanted to ask is, what was it like when friends came over? I mean, seeing your father, what was it like even, you know, bringing boys home for dating? Were they intimidated by Big Chick? Was he as protective of you all as was his nature when he was on the road? What was that dynamic like?
Dad was very protective of us, but he also knew that we were pretty tough. And like but Tina kind of paved the way for the dating. Like I said, she's 4 years older. So Tina told me today a story, and I think it's funny. When a guy would come over, Dad would call him every name but his own name. Okay, David. Okay, John. Or, you know, and maybe his name was Bobby, you know. And so she kind of paved the way, because, you know, 4 years later, you think about that growing up, that's like a whole high school, you know, like 4 years. a whole career in high school. So by the time I started dating, I was pretty smart. I didn't bring dates around until I knew there was somebody that's going to stick around. Because my dad would say stuff like, "Oh, I have a shotgun," and I was like, but it's so funny because I would always kind of say things back to Dad, and I'd be like, "Dad, like they care about your shotgun. They're pretty much intimidated by just you and your appearance, like." So he would laugh, but no, my dad loved us having people over, and I know he was tired once he got home from working with Prince, and I had people downstairs, and he yelled for me, and I was like, okay, this can go one of two ways. He's gonna say, "Send everybody home now," or he's gonna say something fun. And he said something fun. He said, "Do you want me to order some pizzas for your friends?" And I'm like, yeah, and he ordered chalet pizza, which was Prince's favorite too, because I did ask him, "What's your favorite pizza?" And he told me chalet pizza, which is in Hopkins, but it used to be in Chanhassen, but it's in Hopkins now. So he ordered pizza for my buddies downstairs, and they couldn't believe it. And if he didn't have a slice of pizza, he'd say, "Eat some pizza. No, eat some pizza." And so they ate pizza whether they wanted it or not.
Yeah.
I just had dinner and I could go for a slice of pizza right now. I'm just saying. I
Right?
love pizza. I do.
It was the easy thing with 6 kids. It was easy.
Oh, you know it.
So Kurt, what we have to do, like you said, right? We're gonna have a slice and chicks on her.
We're gonna do the and then we'll go to bowling at the Mermaid.
At the Mermaid, right?
There you go.
So that's supposed to be nice.
Yeah,
did you guys see the little podcast with John Mayer talking to Weird Al?
No.
It's on my Big Chick, in honor of Chick, Prince, and Becky.
Yeah.
John Mayer is talking to Weird Al, and he's like talking about the where Dad carries Prince in.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, John Mayer says, because he is younger, what is he, 45? He says, this big biker dude carries Prince in. And Weird Al goes, "That's Chick. That's Big Chick." And it's just funny because I'm sitting there watching this. My friend sent it from high school. He's like, "You'll get a kick out of this." My friend, he's a year older than me. And he sent that to me. And I go, "I have not seen this yet." And it made my week. They're talking about my dad, like, like he's famous because he was, but you just forget that how famous he was. And John Mayer's like, "Oh my gosh, thanks for clearing up the Chick thing. I didn't know." And
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Mayer's a great guitar player. I'll give him credit for that. But hey, he doesn't necessarily know all the history like that. But you bring up Weird Al. Here he is at the height of his career in the 80s, like a surgeon and all the different parodies that he did. And one of the few people he never got clearance to do a song for was Prince.
Yeah, I could
Michael
see that.
would actually, Madonna basically gave Weird Al like a surgeon. Here, this is how you should do this. She even helped the concept for the video, but yeah, Prince wouldn't give him a tune. I guess,
he was very serious about his music.
Absolutely.
Very serious.
To that
he played
point.
every instrument on his albums. And
yeah,
I would sit there and watch them rehearse, and I would even be tired. I'm like, "Oh my God, he's making him do that again." It's like perfect, and you could see their faces, like, the Prince was hardcore and his music proved it, but.
Oh yeah.
So you guys, that's another podcast, because as soon as you said that, I remember Prince and Madonna having a conversation about Weird Al doing a song and what Prince had to say about it. So
Madonna had the hots for Prince, by the way.
Oh, sure she did.
Melissa, I
so
got
did
stories.
Stevie Nicks.
Melissa, I got stories.
I know.
Yeah.
Didn't she?
Yeah.
Oh, we do. This has got to be a part 2 coming.
Right.
This has got to be part 2, man. Melissa's like, yeah, I'm on board with that, man. I listen. I live for stories like that.
Yeah. You know what, Melissa, one of the questions that I wanted to ask is because, we're talking about your father, and we were talking a little bit before we started recording about your father and having worked with AC/DC for a few shows. And you had even said, he's this big biker guy, right? But he's, protecting, and he's this larger than life figure for a funk and rock superstar. Did and then you said your father would be listening to Lynyrd Skynyrd and all kind of classic rock. Did your dad ever talk about the differences between music and differences between those genres, or for him it was just the nature of the business?
I think he liked music. Like I said, he listened to country, Southern rock. He loved the way Prince played guitar. I mean, we all did. Like I'd be sitting there watching him, and all of a sudden he'd break out Jimi Hendrix, and didn't he did him justice. You know what I mean? I was just like, holy buckets. But my dad really liked Prince and his music, and he did say he's going to be famous. And my dad said that right away before anything. And he said, I'm going to watch this guy make history, and he's going to be famous. And it happened. So my dad appreciated music. So no, he never really said that. I think he really liked the fact that he was with this future superstar, and he was able to work with them and watch history. You know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
like in 85, we were in Prince's house, me, my sister Tina, and a couple of my high school friends and my other sisters. And in fact, me and my sister Bridget and our friend Christine slept in Prince's bed. Prince was not there. They were out at the awards, and we watched him get all these awards. And he lived on the lake, and we were laughing because there was a couple of ants in Prince's bed, and we were like, but it smelled just like Prince's cologne and everything. So we loved sleeping in there. And he knew we were spending the night. We were kind of watching his house. Because like I said, my sister Tina worked for him, and that was all part of my dad, you know. And
Wow.
But we watched him make history. He cleaned up that award show. Remember, Lionel Richie was like, what did he say?
Outrageous.
Outrageous.
He kept
Right.
saying outrageous.
The American Music Awards,
Yes.
right?
I watched
And
that
I
night,
was
believe me.
so proud of Prince, so proud,
Wow.
because he came to our house for volleyball games and cookouts. And I mean, one of the times when we were watching him, we were all at a party, and my little brother, he got up and did this dance, and he was kind of rocking back and forth. And Prince, at a couple of days later at the warehouse, yelled my name. He goes, "Hey, Melissa." And I go, "Oh my gosh, what's he going to have me do?" And I walk up, and he whispered, you know how they do that on Saturday Night Live? They're kind of like, they copy Prince. And he did whisper in my ear, and he's like, "Watch this, it's the Chucky." So he did the same exact dance my brother did. And it was like rocking back and forth on his heels and just moving. And I was laughing, and my sisters were like, "What did he say? What did he say?" And I go, "He's doing the Chucky." So that was really cool, because Chuck was in grade school. And
Sure.
Oh man.
Those are great stories. Wow.
Where else are you going to get this, folks, but the Electric Vibe podcast?
Right.
I'm just going to say, Melissa, this is just,
it's gold for us, really.
Yes.
Really.
You're painting a portrait we seldom hear, because you're the family members that are affected by this juggernaut. But from the sound of it, it was pretty darn fun. Most of the time.
And then they would bring Heineken beer to our house for the cookouts. I was like,
Heineken.
That is so fancy, because you know, here when I was in high school, we drink Old Swell, Old Milwaukee. And I was like, what the heck? He has green, fancy, you know, Heineken.
Oh, yep.
Melissa,
wow.
my first 40 was Ballantine's Triple X.
Okay.
I'll just throw that out there.
Oh, boy.
In high school.
That's so funny. It's dating us a little bit, but that's
it isn't it?
Fun time.
Isn't it? A little bit.
It's all good stuff. Hucky?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm just sucking it in. I mean, cause the thing that I'm really enjoying right now is just that, you know, Melissa and her family, and there's very few people that actually had an opportunity to see Prince, you know, as a normal human being, you know, no walls up, not guarded or anything like that. And when I hear stories like Melissa just shared, it really makes me just feel very proud and happy that I had that opportunity. And so yeah, I could just listen to Melissa just talk, you know, for hours. And it's not just her, but anybody that had an opportunity to spend time. And so the thing that I'm hoping that the audience is seeing, and Jay and Kirk, you guys have begin to see it, is just that there was a family there. There was a family in place behind the scenes of normal people with normal families that were in that circle. But Melissa, one of the things that I did want to ask you is that, you know, I remember Chick telling me and Gilbert one time that we were like his sons, and he treated he treated us so well. Man, he was. I always tell people he's my second dad. But I'm wondering, how was he like around other people? I mean, he was such, he really was a gentle teddy bear. But he
Mhm.
had that exterior that is like, man, this dude, you better not mess with him. But once you got to know him, he was a really kind individual. But I'm just curious, was he like that around other people? Because I can only share my experience of what I encountered with the family and with him.
No, he certainly was. He loved getting other guys to work out and stuff, like our friends, like my husband now, like we were dating. He would have him work out, my
Hmm.
brother, lift weights. He had the arm wrestling machine, which was real. It was, those hard springs, that you
Yeah,
do
yeah.
like that. He made this arm wrestling table. My dad was quite handy, and he had a couple of those underneath, or maybe if not three, and then you would do this, and it was hard. And my dad would just go, and then people would say, "Oh, I could do that," and they get up there and they go, like struggling, and they
Wow.
felt they were embarrassed. But my dad was, like I said, he lifted weights all the time. Like, I don't even
Oh,
know,
wow.
even when he was sick, the
Mhm.
doctors were like, "This is the healthiest looking sick man we've ever seen." And he did not quit lifting weights. I mean,
Wow.
he was in heart failure, and he was, of
Still
course, not
lifting.
the same, not the
Yep.
Mhm.
same weight,
Mhm.
but he loved it, and he kept riding his Harley.
Mhm.
Ah,
But no, he did.
Wow.
I remember when he went to Brown Marks, and came back, and he did. Sorry, my dog's barking, and I have a corgi. But he did come back and say he met Gilbert and Hucky, and that he was going to build a really good team, and he was very excited. So yeah.
Wow. Those lasting legacy stories. I've seen, Melissa, a couple of interviews with your dad. There was one where he was, talking about being a protector, and he was serious, but he was also very tongue in cheek, and he had
Yeah.
this kind of like infectious laugh. Was he
Mhm.
practical jokester? Did he, like to have a good time, tell jokes,
mm,
have fun?
mhm.
Yes, he was a storyteller. He loved
Mhm.
joking around. I was class clown in high school. I get that from dad. I always loved jokes too. And it's funny because, dad would tell jokes. They, on one of the tours where we went to visit, they were having a food fight, Prince and dad and the time. And I
Oh,
think
The
my dad
time.
was behind a lot of that.
he
I
was
think,
part of that. Wow.
Wow.
yeah, he was behind a lot of
The
that.
food
And
fight.
he had the fun. He had the fun.
Wow.
And my dad was, he had a sense of humor. So did Prince. I'm sorry, somebody's at the door and my dog's going wild. I hope you can't hear it. But
No, we're fine.
Not at all. Yeah, we're fine.
okay. So anyways, he was really funny. So that is part of what his demeanor was. And Prince was that way too. He had quite the sense of humor, and he loved joking around with my dad. I think that's why they got along so well.
Mhm.
They did have that really cool relationship, and I think that's why he wrote that song that you call them bodyguards. I call them my friends. I
Right.
don't, I don't know
Hello.
the exact, but
Yep.
yeah, hello.
Hello.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Wow. That's
Kanye
great.
West even wrote a song about bodyguards, and I know
Did it?
one reference was of my dad. So I think Prince really thought of us as family. I know he did because he'd come over on Christmas, and he would send each of us a different color of roses. My color was pink every birthday. I
Hmm.
don't know all my siblings' colors, but mine was pink. Get a dozen pink roses every January 3rd. He had
Wow.
Oh,
that all
wow.
written out. That was really cool. And then he sent us to Tennessee to see my grandparents. And then he also flew us into Cleveland to attend a show.
Oh,
And
wow. Cool.
we lived in Tennessee. He had a big concert in Chattanooga, Tennessee,
Hmm.
and they were only using the rooms at the Hilton. No, it wasn't the Hilton. It was the other H. What's the other one?
Hyatt.
Yes, the Hyatt. Thank you. Prince always
That's
went
okay.
there. So all the band would use the rooms to rest up before the show and kind of get ready or whatever. So he had a
Hmm.
whole lot of rooms, a whole suite of them. And he's like, now, chick, have your family drive here and bring their friends, and I'll get them in the concert and they can have all those rooms. Now, how nice. I mean,
Right.
we did that and we brought a whole bunch of friends, and
Oh, wow.
that was great. And then we got the rooms for free. And
Oh, those are just amazing experiences. Wow.
yeah, and he was a kid at heart, and
Yep.
so he really liked that. And I'll tell you one more little story, and I have so many, but
Yeah.
Dad had him over for a 4th of July picnic, and we just moved here. And he was always early too, but I had Delirious cranked downstairs and I was dancing, and I was in our space downstairs. It was our second living room, and I was just dancing and having fun, and I turn around real quick doing my little Prince, twirl or whatever. Thought I was great. And Prince was sitting in the chair watching me. I about died. I was only a junior in high school. And I'm sitting there, Prince is sitting there, just sitting there. And I was like, I died laughing. I was cracking up, and I'm like, just kidding. And he died laughing. And it was so funny. And he ran up the stairs and he told my dad.
Oh my goodness.
That's
that
great.
is great. Yep.
Melissa, something that's came to my mind, and this wasn't part of the questions, but it's probably going to be easy for you to ask. What was that like when you would go back? And I'm sure you shared some stuff with your friends at school. I mean, here you are in high school, and your dad works for arguably the biggest artist at that time. And then you share a story, because I was there, and you're telling me this, and I'm still blown away. I can only imagine what teenage girls must have been like. It's like, oh yeah, I'm dancing, and behind me there's Prince.
Right.
I mean, what was that like? I mean, and what was the response?
Well, it's funny because you know how fast Prince would drive, and we lived on Dakota Avenue, Chan Estates, and he would whip down that neighborhood, and like right when we moved in. So we had neighbors, and neighbors are nosy. So it was like the telephone game. Like, oh my gosh, there's 3 girls coming to Chaska and their dad's Prince's bodyguard. They called us the Prince girls, or, and I was like, and I was proud of my dad, but and we all were, but we wanted our own identity. So when people would introduce me, it'd be like, this is Big Chick's daughter. And I'd be like, you can call me Melissa. It's like, but I was very proud of my dad, but I didn't want to ride on his shirt tails. You know what I mean? Like, but hey, I was proud, believe me. I didn't mind telling people once in a while, but I don't know. It was fun. It was fun. So people did know. And we had all the free swag. We had the Prince posters in our room, and we had all of his cassettes and T-shirts Prince would send home with Dad, and Vanity 6 T-shirts. And
oh wow,
wow, right. Yeah. That's great, Kurt.
That's a whole other story too. Mistletoe Madness at school. They did an air band contest, and me and my sister Bridget and our friend Kella, we did Sex Shooter. And
no way.
Yes, we did, and it was funny.
Wow.
We won $75 first place, and I said, okay, we're having a keg party. That's what we're doing with that money.
You're my kind of gal, Melissa.
Exactly,
you are my kind of gal. Man, we could have hung back in the 80s, baby.
But this is really funny. We wore camisoles and the shirts and the capes. So at the little dance, we had our capes on and we never flipped them back. So then student council, as a friends with a lot of them, they're like, hey, we want you to do that at Pep Fast, because Purple Rain was in its glory. I was a senior. So we get up in front of the whole school and we're doing Sex Shooter. And it was great. I did all the choreographer. I watched it over and over, and I had it down to an art. And so, but then we flipped the capes back, and we're in camisoles and tights. And this is in front of the whole high school. Needless to say, Monday morning came along, and Mr. Octor called us to the office, and he was saying that we're going to get in trouble. And this isn't MTV, I said, and I should have been a lawyer, because I was like, hey, student council told us to do this, so take it up with them, or you can take it up with my dad. And he let us leave.
Yeah. He didn't need to take it up with Big Chick.
No,
So-
nobody wanted to do that.
I got to ask to follow up with the whole thing. Who did the Brenda Bennett part? Was that you?
Yes.
Who was okay? Somehow you kind of remind me of Brenda a little bit. I could
I
totally see
love
that.
Brenda.
I do too,
Mhm.
man. She's Brenda. Brenda was. I think that she's got that sassy, take control. You know,
Mhm.
you better recognize who I am kind of quality, and I kind of see that in yourself. That you know,
Right.
you said about how proud you were of your father, but at the same time, you had clearly your own identity. Boy, I'll
Yeah.
tell you, you would have been fun to hang out with in high school. That's what I'm going to say, man.
I would have gotten you in trouble.
Good trouble, the only kind.
Oh, that's great. Hucky.
Once again, I'm just like really just taking this all in. I do have a quick question for you, Melissa. So over the years, you guys always are connected with Jill Jones. Did you guys know Jill before your dad moved here, or was that after?
No, she moved into Loring Park in an apartment. So um she would come to our house a lot. She really liked Dad. Dad loved Jill. He loved Paul Peterson and Matt and Bobby. Like I'm telling you, like I could tell when he left Prince, he was very sad. You know, you guys were all family. So Jill was like family. She had the same birthday as Becky too, July 11th. So we would have birthday parties, and Prince got us girls backstage passes to Stevie Nicks concert, and we met Stevie Nicks, and
Cool.
she had a thing for Prince, and
Oh,
Jill
shit.
didn't like that. Jill didn't like that, but we met Stevie Nicks, and she's short, and she bought Prince a crystal ball and all that stuff. So no, Jill just kind of gravitated to us, and we loved her, and I'm still friends with her on Facebook, and we haven't messaged for a while, but after Becky died, she did reach out, and after Prince died, it was like I tell you, when Prince died, that was like reliving my dad's death. Not that I've ever gotten over my dad's death, but it just brought back floods of memories. And
Of course. So closely tied together, and he was
Right,
family.
right.
At the end of the day, like you said, to your point, he was family.
yeah.
He became a
Yeah.
part of your family and your life.
hmm So yeah, I mean, Prince knew he moved us here, and it was at a pivotal time of our lives. We were in high school, and
Yeah. Oh yeah.
just moving here the summer before my junior year, we and my other sisters, like my sister Kim was a sophomore and my sister Bridget was a freshman. And, I think Prince knew that we were bored. So he included us in on the parties, and we went to Jill's birthday party that he threw. And man, Prince threw some great parties. We got to go to his birthday party in the house they filmed Purple Rain in. He had parrots everywhere, and that was first he performed. Yeah, first he performed at First Avenue. So we got a full concert. And then after that, we went to that house, and we each got to bring a friend. I brought two. I brought two friends, but that was fun. I mean, we got to go to the house they filmed Purple Rain in, and he had parrots everywhere, and just Heineken. I'm pretty sure Heineken was there. The fancy beer.
Yep.
On Snelling Avenue, right? That's the house that's on Snelling Avenue. I've
Yeah,
seen
it's
it.
the white one.
Yeah, before they did it all up on Airbnb, I've seen it in its original configuration.
I'd love to go to that Airbnb out there if anybody has any connections.
Not me.
I know. I'm not saying you.
Hey,
I'm saying this
maybe
podcast is going to be out there.
Oh, hey, the Electric Vibe sponsored by Airbnb. Maybe, gentlemen, maybe we could get something going with that.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves.
I know Wendy and Lisa. I thought Wendy and Lisa had some connection with that.
Yes, I saw that. I don't know if they were
right?
just advertising for them, or
there was some
I'm
kind of
not sure.
contest. There was some kind of contest, I think, related to that. Yeah.
No, I knew Lisa better than I knew Wendy.
Okay, cool. Well,
Yeah.
she was in the band in the earlier days there from Dirty Mind On. I mean, she was there already. So yeah, I
Yeah.
imagine
All those
you would have
years.
had a rapport with her.
It was after Des left. Yep.
Sure.
I love Des too.
Des Dickerson.
Des
and I know
Dickerson.
health-wise, he's not been doing that great. Our send our prayers and blessings to him.
Of course.
Many prayers. Love Des.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, once we were at a concert in Tennessee somewhere, and we're walking up and Des said, "Little chicks." And my sister Kim whispers to me, "Did he just call us little tits?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no, he's the little
The
chicks."
chicks.
Oh my God.
And I hate that word, by the way. I hate that
Oh,
Thank
Lord.
God. I will never say it in front of you.
That's right. Right. We'll behave ourselves. You know what, Melissa, I wanted to ask later in life, we know that, Chick became deeply spiritual, started sharing his testimony. What was that like for you all? Do you remember? Can you share some stories related to that?
Yeah, like I said, our foundation was church, and Dad was very religious, and he kind of backslid once he was in the security business. But I like that his faith was restored, and it all happened when my nephew Tina's son Jeremy had a seizure. He had never had seizures, and he was downstairs very little. I think he was 6 or 7, sleeping with my sister because she was watching him, my sister Kim, and she knew something was wrong because he was shaking. So she turned on the light and his face was blue, and she started yelling for Dad because Dad in his past life was a police officer and a lifeguard at Vero Beach, and he actually saved lives. So he came down and was working on Jeremy forever. I mean, I'm talking forever. I thought Jeremy was dead, and my dad yelled as loud as he could, "Jesus!" And it was blood curdling. You had goosebumps. And little Jeremy looked up and said, "What's wrong, Grandpa?" And it was like huge miracle. And from that day on, my dad was just
Wow.
Christian again. And not that he ever wasn't, but he wasn't walking his faith when he was doing everything that he was doing within the rock industry.
Mhm.
Melissa, you
But-
have to put these, sorry to interrupt there, but you have to put these stories in book form or something to chronicle this stuff. These stories are gems. You're
These
just
are
throwing
gold.
us these
Yeah.
not gold plated, gold gems.
And I witnessed that. It's like,
Yeah.
in fact, the night before my dad passed away, he was listening. His eyes were kind of getting bad, and he was listening to his Bible tapes on cassette form. And I popped my head in, and I said, "Good night, Dad." And I said, "Love you." And he said, "Good night." And then 5 o'clock in the morning, and he said, "I love you too," of course, which was really good. But 5 o'clock in the morning, I heard my mom screaming, and he fell out of bed, and he was never awake out since then. So that's when he passed away, and I had to call 911. And
Wow.
it wasn't, they were like asking all these questions, and I'm like, so then I felt like it was forever, and I called back and I was like, "If you don't get here soon, I'm going to sue you." I was like, and then they came, but he never did wake up. And I will tell you something real quick, that Pastor Ona did pray with my dad, because my dad did want to go around and bring young men to the Lord in prisons, and probably women too. I didn't know about that as much, but he prayed that God would give him a year, because Dad was on a donor list, and a year later to the date, my dad passed away. And I'm not kidding. Like,
Wow.
Pastor Ona even talked
Can't
about
make
that
that
at
up.
his funeral. Yeah, I didn't make that up, but
When they say truth is stranger than fiction, this is
Right.
the classical example
Right.
of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
yeah.
That's amazing. Hucky?
While we're kind of there, one of the questions that we talked about, and this one's one that really moves me, but life after the loss of your father and also your sister. What has it been like for the family since they've both been gone for you guys?
That's another thing. I still wake up and say, "Oh my gosh, Becky's gone." And she's the youngest of 5 girls. It wasn't supposed to happen that way. But she did tell me, "I'm going to die this year," on her birthday. And she was turning 49. And I said, "No, you're not. You're just saying that because dad was 49. I said, "I felt that way. Tina did." It's kind of like my dad died at 49. When I turned 49, you can't help but think
about that.
something like that.
Yep.
Of course.
And I just reassured her. And now when I think about that, I wish I would have given her a hug and said, "No, you're not. You're not going anywhere." But I mean, she still would have, because when it's your time, it is. But very hard. My mom's close to all of us, but Becky lived with mom. So, Tina stays with mom a lot now, and she's married. So my sister is selfless. She takes care of Jeremy because he continued to have seizures, and you know, he's in his 40s and he can never live alone. So she takes care of Jeremy, and then she helps with my mom. And I'm talking about a superhero as my older sister Tina, but she'll stay with my mom a lot because my mom doesn't want to give up her townhome because Becky lived there, and there is a light there. I'm not kidding. It's supposed to not work. It's round and it does different colors, and it didn't work when Becky was alive. It worked for a little bit, but now that thing is flickering. It's 5 years later, and I'll go over there and I'll say, "Hi, Becky, hi." And I think, I don't know, I think Tina does it too, but that thing will just flicker all these colors, and it's on an angel that my mom has, this big angel that Becky bought my mom. It's crazy. I mean, I could film it and show you guys. It's just something about that light. And but yeah, it is hard. I always just think that she's with us. Just like when Dad passed away, I would always act like he was on tour. Some people might say it's not healthy, but it's how I dealt with it, and it seemed to work.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Melissa, what do you think your dad would want the world to remember about him? Not as a bodyguard, not as a protector for Prince, but as a man. What do you think it would be?
I think he would want to be remembered by being a dad of 6 kids and 7 grandkids. He only got to meet my son, Brandon. Brandon was 3 when my dad passed away, and my dad loved Brandon. Like, Brandon's middle name is Charles, and was my dad's name. And when I had him, my dad grabbed him and carried him out and showed everybody. He was so proud. And let me tell you, Brandon looked like he's only 7 pounds, 13 ounces, and he looked like this tiny little nothing in my dad's big arms. And my dad was so proud. And when I told him Brandon's middle name, my dad had tears. So he was big and ferocious, but he had a big, huge heart. And so did my sister, Becky. Those are 2 things I would want people to know about my dad and Becky, is their huge heart, you know, and it's 100% true. Like, you can't make that up. You can't fake a big, huge, sincere heart. And that's what I would want people to remember.
I got a follow-up question for you.
Yeah.
If Dad and Rebecca were listening right now and they could hear you, what would you want to say to them?
That's tough because I have dreams all the time that they're alive, and I would just want them to say I wouldn't be the person I am today if I didn't know them, and that I miss them, and if I could have them back, I would. Like any of us would. Super close family. Love every one of my family members, and that we do get a lot of compliments from people that see our pictures and our photos that they don't know a family closer than us. Of course, we can have our little tiffs. They never last more than a day. But we are a close family, and
you still have your mother. You still have your mom in your life too. God bless her. May I ask?
I want to tell the one story she told, or she'll get mad.
Yes, please.
We don't want to get mom mad. It was just Mother's Day yesterday.
Please do that.
Yeah, we don't want. She's like little 5 foot, little Southern. She still has her Southern twang, but yeah, you don't want to make her mad.
Firecracker.
But she told me 2 stories actually, and I'll tell them quick because I love to talk. One was, it was before any of us were born. Maybe Tina was a baby. Dad was saying, "I'm thinning up on top," and you know, his hair. And he says, "I'm going to give myself a mohawk." And Mom goes, "Well, you go right ahead," thinking he wouldn't. And he went in the bathroom and he came out with a mohawk. And this was like way back, you know, early 80s, 70s, I would believe. I mean, well, maybe, no, I would say 60s because I was born in 67. Yeah, in the 60s. So who had a mohawk back then? And Mom said it looked terrible because he didn't have much hair on top. But but I think it's funny because usually if a wife says go ahead, you know, they would take it as a no.
Right.
The other one she told me, and this is great. She was in high school. She was a senior, and they ran to the window and they were watching somebody out there. And my mom heard a motorcycle and she knew it was Dad. And she did not go to the window. She was the only one because she knew he was out there showing off. And sure enough, he was doing his little tricks with the handlebars on his bike, and he was a really good motorcycle rider, and he did look like Fonzie back then. And mom said all of a sudden she heard police, the sirens, and so then she got up to look, but dad was long gone. He took off, he outran the cops. But
Wow.
those were the stories my mom said to tell of his
Okay.
character.
Wow.
Yep.
The rebel. He really was.
Painting the picture. So
Mhm.
Melissa, this has been so much fun.
Yes.
I could talk to you all night.
I could talk to you guys too. It's awesome.
Yeah,
This is great.
just catching up, and this, the love that I have for you and your family, it's this, man, it's just amazing. Like I
And
said,
we love you. I mean, it's been great to think of everybody as family that was associated with Prince. After dad left Prince, I would see Prince out at clubs, and he would call me over and he'd ask about dad. And then I'd go home and make the mistake of telling dad, I talked to Prince. What did he say? I tell the story, but then my dad would want me to repeat it because my dad loved to be, acknowledged, and he loved the fact that Prince was asking about him because he still cared about Prince. And I think that's really special that they had this deep connected relationship. And
Yeah.
he did that tribute when my dad passed away.
I was going to ask about that.
Yep.
Mhm.
At Rupert's.
At Rupert's, and he told the story of my dad playing the air guitar on the broom to Purple Rain, and I was there when he did that. He came out to the guitar solo with that broom, and he was getting it. Like, he was actually doing pretty good. And I was dying laughing because 6'7" just playing this broom, and Prince was giggling too, of course. So he did tell that story before he played Purple Rain for dad, and he said, Chick, I know you're out there somewhere. And of course all of us just lost it. We all started crying. But they did have that deep rooted connection.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, this has been so amazing for us. We really
Absolutely.
would love to have you come back sometime in the near future.
I would love to. I would love to bring another sibling. Tina was going to,
Oh.
but she was busy with mom and Jeremy, and she wanted me to tell you guys she was sorry she couldn't make it. But we're all proud of dad. We have many stories, and
There's a standing invitation. I think
Absolutely.
all three of us know.
Absolutely.
This has been a blast just getting to know you. And Hucky, we couldn't have had this kind of episode without your presence and being a member of their family like that. And just thank you for including Jay and myself in this conversation. This is just
we're very,
beyond,
very grateful.
Beyond a blessing.
I feel like I know you guys from Facebook, but now I get to actually talk to you, so I think it's great.
Right. That's a great thing.
Oh man.
Hey, Melissa, I say that. Before we leave, tell us a little bit about your Facebook pages that you guys have. We would love to have people follow you guys.
Yeah, I started a memory of my dad and Prince, and then I added Becky when she passed away. So we could put that up when you're advertising. I can send you a link to that group. I love it. It's mainly I have it so people can tell stories if they've seen him in the past at a concert, which people have, or they've brought forth photos, which is pretty cool. And then it's just a memory, and then we talk about music and all kinds of things. So it's just a positive group. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Melissa, do you remember one of the first times you and I were chatting on Facebook? I sent you the picture of the Rolling Stone article of the show at Rupert's. I still have it from 1990, the original article. I saved it in one of my scrapbooks, and I think I took a picture of it and sent it to you. And that's how you and I had started to talk.
Yeah, that kind of stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
Because it really, we hang on to our dad, right? Like he's no longer with us, but he's etched in our hearts. And when you get something like that, it's like a hello from heaven, and I love it. It's just a way to just keep going. And like I said, he has grandkids that are amazing. Like I have 3 kids. He only met Brandon. My sister Kim has a son, Tyler. He does rap. He does rap. I sound old, but no, he raps. And then And he's really good, but it sounded fun. I said he does rap, just like my mom used to say, "Are you on the pot?" Which I never was, but I never was, I promise. But like
That's
she'll
old
say,
school.
"Yeah, are you
Oh
on the
my
pot?" She said that to somebody, and I'm
God.
like the toilet or no, she's funny.
Oh,
Oh, goodness.
But anyways, and then my sister Bridget has a son and a daughter, and then Tina has Jeremy, which um of course my dad knew Jeremy and loved Jeremy and Brandon so much, and he would be very proud of all of his grandkids. And then
wow.
my daughters are Macy and Lexi, and they're amazing too. They're really good artists, like as in art, as drawing, and so is my son. But
The visual
yeah,
arts. Wow,
so
they're
we have
great.
a lot of talent in our family, and I think that has a lot to do with, they all have a little bit of grandpa in them and grandma, and I think that's amazing in a family. And just watching some of their facial expressions, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like something my dad would have done. And I think that a lot of their qualities live on through us and Becky too. So
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's great.
Well, we'll start with you tonight, Mr. J. What do you got to say in the final thoughts, sir?
Yes, I'm going to say, Melissa Kahn, thank you very much for joining us. For people like us in the community, your father was larger than life, but it is just an honor to hear about him as a man, as a father, as a husband, and it means a lot that you would share all these stories with us. And I think that we're all serious. We want to have you back with one of your siblings. We'll do a part two. We'll tell some more
Yes.
stories. We'll have a great time. I am going to say that, folks, if you like what you see and heard, please remember to hit that like and subscribe button so we can keep continuing to bring you great, intimate content like this. Stories about Prince and the associated people that he worked with. So your support really does mean a lot to us. And I will say, the way I close every show is, when the universe comes knocking, you have to answer that door. Kurt?
Thank you, Jay. Um, I not only did we get to know your dad and here's stories about Prince that I have never heard anywhere else like this. But but the biggest takeaway for me is getting to know you,
oh, thank
and
you.
I really appreciate your candor and just your way of telling these stories. It's just, please consider putting this in some written form or a podcast of your own. I dare say you've got stories that certainly are worthy of people's attention. Um, so thank you for coming on our show, and Hucky, thank you for setting all this up. I certainly would be remiss if I didn't mention that. As I always say before we close every show, my trademark phrase. I do want to mention to folks that we are on all streaming platforms. So, we're not just in the YouTubeverse, we're on Spotify, Apple Music. So if you have friends that aren't necessarily on your favorite streaming format, tell them we're on all the streaming formats. Have them join, have them like one more than one format. But as I always say, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Oh,
Hucky?
I like it.
Yeah, these last two shows that we've done have been really personal for me. And so
Yeah.
they're people that I have been around and spent a lot of time with, Melissa, and you just brought so much joy to me today. Uh,
Oh, thank you.
Reminiscing some of the stories, and I could just sit up here and just go back and forth with you about stories of your dad, and we'll have to do that at another time, because every time you brought up something, I was like, okay, here's the B part. I remember that, and we'll certainly get an opportunity. I usually have a quote that I say, but I'm going to skip that tonight. Um, I asked a question, if Chick could hear us and Becky could hear us, and I'm going to focus on Chick. What would he say, and what would we say to them? And one of the things that he used to say to me all the time, and it just brought so much joy and laughter to me, and it was real simple, and it was, "Hey, buddy, what are you doing?" Thank you so much.
That's great, Melissa.
Like
Thank you.
Kirk
You
said,
take care.
please subscribe.
Peace.
This is
Like
how
and subscribe, folks.
Like and subscribe. Right.
Like and
Remember,
subscribe.
I appreciate that.
That's
Remember,
right.
folks, plug in, tune out, get electric.